Hello and welcome back to Mastering English Podcast, the place where we break down English for you, focusing not just on what you say, but on the precise science of how your brain learns to acquire it. I'm your host, Alex.
And I'm Sam. Good to see you, everyone. And today we are here to tackle what is, I think, universally acknowledged as the single most frustrating experience in the entire language learning journey.
Oh, the struggle is so real. And if you're listening right now, you know exactly what we're talking about. You started learning English and your progress was fast, right? It was measurable.
Totally. You were collecting new words like achievements in a video game.
Exactly. And you felt amazing. But then the engine stalled. You just feel completely stuck. You're putting in the hours, you're still listening to podcasts, you're watching series, but you keep feeling like, the needle just isn't moving, no matter how hard you push.
That flat line on the progress graph is the classic sign, isn't it? You've achieved a certain level of, let's call it functional English.
Right.
You can handle most day-to-day situations. You can get by when you travel, but then you get put under any kind of real cognitive stress.
Oh, yeah, like a rapid-fire work meeting. Or you're suddenly trying to keep up with a group of 4 fast-talking native speakers.
And your carefully constructed English it crumples. The whole foundation suddenly feels really shaky.
And the worst part, I think the part that makes people feel truly isolated is missing the humor, you know, and the nuance. Everyone else is laughing at some cultural joke or they pick up on the subtle irony in an email and you're sitting there trying to translate the sentence in your head thinking, I understand all the words, but I don't get the meaning.
Right. You realize you're not just missing vocabulary, you're missing the whole context.
Yeah.
The speed of native thought.
That feeling of being perpetually 1 second behind.
That is the definitive characteristic of the problem we're dissecting today, the intermediate plateau. And this deep dive is going to be incredibly granular. We're going to use scientific sources to explain exactly why your brain resists that next step. We'll look at how we can leverage the concept of neuroplasticity, the literal physical rewiring of your brain to force progress, and outline the small, non-negotiable, consistent actions you need to take to punch a hole right through that wall.
I find the neuroscience angle so powerful. The idea that we're not just, memorizing rules, but we're physically changing the matter inside our skulls. It's incredible.
It is. We'll be talking about how this process actually increases the gray matter in your brain.
You're literally getting a cognitive upgrade just by practicing your English consistently.
And we'll get into the details of what that increase in gray matter density really means for crucial cognitive skills. Things like your memory, your focus, your ability to manage high-stress situations.
So it's not just about language.
Not at all. It's a full system brain workout.
Exactly. And to make sure you're focused on the action plan we're going to lay out later, we're going to hit you with a quick pop quiz toward the end of this deep dive.
Yep.
We're going to test you on some key concepts like the structure of the 90-minute study cycle and the essential difference between focusing on abstract goals versus building concrete systems.
So stick with us. This is knowledge you can apply immediately. But before we dive in deep, we need to ask you for one tiny favor. It genuinely helps us keep the lights on and the knowledge flowing.
It really does.
If you value the actionable, detailed insights we bring you here, please take a second and subscribe to Mastering English Podcast right now and give this deep dive a quick like. It truly helps us reach more learners who are stuck exactly where you are and desperately need this knowledge to move forward.
Okay, so let's unpack this idea of the intermediate plateau, because it requires acknowledging a difficult truth.
Which is?
You're not a beginner anymore. You've achieved a functional level, but functional proficiency is fundamentally different from fluency.
That's the core struggle. How do we, the learners, know if we're truly in this intermediate phase or just, struggling? I hear the acronyms B1, B2, C1 a lot. What do those CEFR levels really mean in daily life? That's a great question. The CEFR, the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, it gives us a really crucial metric. If you look at the B1 description, which is that comfortable intermediate level, it's defined by being able to understand the main points of clear, standard input on familiar matters, things you see at work or during your free time. You can deal with most situations when you're traveling, and you can produce simple connected text on topics you're interested in.
So B1 is basically survival and simple communication. It's safe, it's reliable for low-stakes situations.
It is. It's operational. But now let's look at the C1 level, which is what most intermediate learners are aspiring to when they talk about fluency.
Okay, what's a jump like?
It's a massive jump. C1 requires you to understand a wide range of demanding, longer texts, and most importantly, to recognize implicit meaning.
Implicit meaning, so like sarcasm, subtext, humor.
Hmm.
All without having to consciously translate it.
Precisely. That's the difference between hearing the words and understanding the intention behind them.
I see.
And furthermore, C1 demands that you express ideas fluently and spontaneously without much obvious searching for words. And you have to use the language flexibly and effectively for social, academic, and professional purposes.
So that leap from just simple text at B1 to, like, clear, well-structured, detailed arguments on complex subjects at C1.
Yeah.
That's huge.
It's massive. And the tools that got you through B1 are simply inadequate for C1.
And that inadequacy is what causes all the frustration.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm not studying, it's that my study method isn't working anymore.
Absolutely. And a very common sign that you've stalled in this zone is having what experts call a jagged profile.
Okay, let's unpack that. A jagged profile, that sounds concerning.
It just means your skills have developed unevenly. You might be fantastic at passive skills like reading and listening. You can analyze a complex article. You can listen to a deep dive like this one and get 95% of it. But then your active output, your speaking and your writing, is hesitant. It's full of simple errors, or maybe it's the other way around. You're a great talker, very charismatic, but your written grammar just falls apart.
So that imbalance where some parts are strong, maybe C1 level, and others are just stuck back at B1,
Right.
that's the plateau.
That's a defining characteristic of it.
That actually makes me feel a bit better because I always assumed if I was C1 in one skill, I should be C1 in all of them.
It's a common misconception. What it really means is you've hit what we call the survival trap. You've mastered the, say, 3,000 most common high-frequency words.
Okay.
You can effectively survive in English with this vocabulary, but consider the gap. The average adult native speaker uses an estimated 20,000 to 30,000 words.
20,000. Wow. Okay, so I'm at the base camp and the summit is 20,000 words higher. That feels a little overwhelming.
It is intimidating, but it explains why the jump is so hard. You've learned all the easy words, the high-reward words that pop up in every simple conversation. The core reason progress slows down is rooted in the mathematics of language acquisition, specifically the law of diminishing returns and something called Zipf's law.
Okay, tell me about Zipf's law. That sounds like something I should have paid more attention to in school.
Well, what's fascinating here is how universal this principle is. It applies to language, city sizes, even like social connections. Zipf's law describes the distribution of word frequency. It states that the frequency of any word is inversely proportional to its rank in the frequency table.
Okay, hang on. Break that down for me in simple terms.
Right. Good question. It just means the single most common word, like the or a, appears vastly more often than the second most common word, and the second appears vastly more often than the third, and so on.
So the graph of word frequency just drops off a cliff.
Exponentially. When you were learning the first 1,000 words, you encountered them hundreds of times a day. That's why your progress felt so steep. You were hitting the jackpot constantly.
But now that I need to learn words like, I don't know, colossal or expedient or ephemeral, I barely ever see them.
Exactly. That is the law of diminishing returns in action. The effort required to acquire the next new word is significantly greater than the effort for the last one you learned. Because those advanced C1 level words are so infrequent, your brain doesn't see them as important right away.
So the problem isn't a lack of effort. It's that the input I need, the frequency, has just plummeted.
Spot on. And this is why you must change your strategy. Research suggests that for a new low-frequency word to really cement itself into stable long-term memory, to create a strong neural network, your brain needs at least 6, maybe 10, or even 12 meaningful encounters with that word.
12 times.
And across a range of different contexts and scenarios, you have to start engineering these encounters because they won't happen naturally often enough to break the plateau.
Wow. Okay, that deep context is incredibly helpful. Now that we understand the problem, let's slow down and apply that very principle. Let's acquire some of these high-value words, starting with the one that defines the whole struggle. Plateau. I hear intermediate plateau constantly. What exactly does a plateau mean, structurally?
A plateau, pronounced plat-OH, is fundamentally a period where forward movement stops, or the rate of progress levels off dramatically after a steep period of initial growth. It's that moment when the upward slope just turns into a steady, flat stage.
A period of frustrating nothingness. Okay. Give me those 3 distinct examples to loop it into my active memory.
Of course. Let's leap this word. Number 1, the formal example. Due to market saturation, the company's growth in the third quarter plateaued, indicating a need for strategic realignment.
Right.
Number 2, casual. My workout routine hit a strength plateau a few weeks ago, so my coach suggested I switch up my lifting schedule to push past it.
I've been there.
And number 3, a bit funny. I thought I had mastered cooking eggs, but my omelet-making skill seems to have reached a culinary plateau. They're edible, but they're never perfect.
Huh. Okay, let's role play that feeling of being stuck. Let's say I'm complaining to you after a meeting.
Okay, go for it.
Ugh, I was so quiet during that team brainstorming session. I usually have so many ideas.
Yeah, I noticed. What happened?
I don't know. I understood the main topic, but every time I tried to jump in quickly, the vocabulary just wasn't there. I felt clumsy. I feel like my English has definitely hit this massive intermediate plateau.
I hear you. It's discouraging, but it's a signal, not a stock sign. You have a choice when you hit a plateau. You can stay comfortable in the survival zone, or you can actively implement new systems to break the plateau.
I'm choosing to push. And to push, I need to know my efforts actually change something. That brings us to the science. The rewiring idea sounds almost sci-fi. What is that scientific word again? Neuroplasticity? And how is it the solution here?
Neuroplasticity is the biological key to breaking the plateau. It's the brain's profound ability to constantly change, adapt, and reorganize its neural connections and pathways in response to new information or practice.
So it's a literal physical process.
It is. The core analogy here is that your brain is permanently sculptable. It's like a living garden that you can prune and grow, not a fixed, unchanging computer you got 30 years ago.
Not a fixed computer. That's an essential distinction. Okay, let's hear the examples.
Here we go. Formal. Research confirms that sustained effort in language acquisition throughout adulthood provides compelling evidence of continued neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
Casual. Learning a complex new skill, like playing the drums, is a great way to remind yourself you still have plenty of neuroplasticity left in your brain.
I like that one.
And funny, my ability to remember 20 different passwords, none of which I actually use, is a testament to the sheer, sometimes misguided power of my brain's neuroplasticity.
Okay, let's do a quick skit. I'll express the common doubt people feel about change.
Go for it.
Look, I'm 40. I feel like my habits are set in stone.
Yeah.
I don't think I can fundamentally change the way my brain accesses English after all this time. I just feel hardwired for my native language.
You're underestimating yourself. The very fact that you are understanding this conversation, which is entirely in your second language, proves neuroplasticity is active right now.
Wow.
Every single time you practice, you are actively leveraging neuroplasticity. And remember the structural evidence we talked about. Sustained L2 study causes an increase in gray matter density and enhances the function of the hippocampus, the memory center. That is physical proof that this change is driven by neuroplasticity.
I'm literally growing brain matter.
Yeah.
That is the kind of motivation that goes beyond just willpower.
Right.
Okay, now let's talk about the enemy of that progress. Mistakes. I read about fossilized mistakes. I keep making the same simple errors, like using much instead of many for countable nouns, even though I know the grammar rule intellectually. Does this mean the mistake is permanent?
It certainly feels permanent, which is why we call them fossilized mistakes. They are errors that have become highly resistant to correction because the wrong pattern, that incorrect usage, have been deeply cemented into your procedural memory through endless, thoughtless repetition.
So my conscious brain knows the rule.
Your conscious declarative memory knows the rule, but when you speak fast, the old wrong habit fires automatically because it's the path of least resistance.
The automatic wrong answer. That is the definition of the plateau struggle. Examples, please.
Understood. Number 1, formal. Language education research indicates that overcoming fossilized mistakes requires dedicated metacognitive awareness and focused retrieval practice.
Oh.
Number 2, casual. Even though I'm fluent, sometimes I forget the as on third-person singular verbs. It's a persistent fossilized mistake of mine that I have to constantly monitor.
Yeah, that one's common.
And a funny one. My grandpa still refers to his smartphone as a pocket computer. It's a deeply fossilized mistake in technology vocabulary.
Huh. Okay, let's role-play a high-stakes scenario where a mistake causes real embarrassment.
Let's do it.
So I was giving a presentation to a big client yesterday, and when I was thanking them, I kept saying, "Thank you for many supports" instead of "much support." They all just paused, and I felt my face turn red. That tiny error just ruined my confidence. It's an old, painful, fossilized mistake.
I feel for you. That panic under pressure is exactly when the fossilized patterns emerge. The key to making them resist correction less is to identify that specific error and then bombard your procedural memory with correct, repetitive input, ideally through writing, which forces conscious correction.
Conscious correction. Got it. Okay, finally, let's talk about structuring the time needed for that intense correction.
Wow.
I don't have 3 hours a day to study. My life is busy. What did the source mean by microbursts? Does short study time actually work?
It doesn't just work, it's often superior. Microbursts refers to short, highly focused, intense learning sessions, typically lasting anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes. These are strategically spaced throughout your day and are proven to be far more effective for long-term retention than long, intense marathons or panicked cramming sessions.
So quality over marathon quantity. I need 3 examples of this word.
Here you go. Number 1, formal. The school piloted a new system utilizing consistent microburst review sessions to significantly increase student test performance and retention scores.
Makes sense.
Number 2, casual. I use my entire train ride, about 15 minutes, to do intense listening practice. That's my daily microburst of English immersion.
Love that.
And funny. My attempt to reorganize my entire kitchen in 10 minutes was an intense organizational microburst that ultimately failed, scattering pots everywhere.
I've had one of those. Okay, let's role play. I'm feeling overwhelmed by the sheer volume of material I need to cover. Look, I feel like I need to listen, read, write, and speak every single day, but I only have like 45 minutes of free time. If I split that up, it feels useless.
Don't think of it as splitting up one activity. Think of it as leveraging your brain's natural cycles. Use the microburst model. 15 minutes of active listening on your way to work, 10 minutes of vocabulary review during your coffee break, 20 minutes of summarizing before bed. Consistent microburst learning strengthens those neural pathways far better than infrequent, grueling cramming, which fails to establish the stable, long-term networks you need for true C1 performance.
Okay, consistent microbursts. I can commit to that because it actually respects my schedule. That makes sense.
Now that we have the vocabulary and the concept of microbursts, let's get into the deep mindset shift required to actually sustain them. This is the psychological upgrade.
Right. I've always relied on feeling motivated. If I'm excited about a new movie or travel plans, I'll study. But you said focusing on motivation is insufficient.
It is insufficient, and here's why. Motivation is an emotion. It's fleeting. It's tied to abstract goals like, I want to be fluent.
Right.
Success, especially when you're grinding through the slow progress of the plateau, requires prioritizing systems and habits. You need to make the practice non-negotiable regardless of how you feel that day. The core belief has to be that your brain is sculptable, which is neuroplasticity, not hardwired to fail.
So if I build a system, the feeling of motivation becomes the reward for doing this system, not the fuel to start it.
Exactly. Neuroscience tells us that action comes first and motivation follows. When you start a small, positive action like picking up your flashcards, your brain releases dopamine and other reward chemicals after you finish, which reinforces the behavior. It makes it easier to start the next time. You literally have to act your way into motivation.
That's a fundamental shift. I often hear people talk about a fixed versus a growth mindset. It sounds very academic, but how does that actually affect my English results?
It fundamentally dictates your reaction to the plateau. A fixed mindset operates under the idea that ability is innate. I am bad at languages, I don't have the talent. This person sees the plateau as proof of their failure and tends to quit.
And a growth mindset.
A growth mindset believes, I can improve, mistakes are valuable feedback, and effort is the path to mastery.
I see. So the difference is how you interpret failure. If I have a fixed mindset, every mistake raises something called the affective filter, right?
Yes. The affective filter is that emotional defense mechanism, anxiety, fear of mistakes, self-consciousness, that stops you from taking necessary risks. When you consciously adopt a growth mindset, you lower that filter. This lets your brain's CEO, the executive functions, operate more effectively without fighting all that psychological noise.
Let's talk more about the brain's filtering system.
Yeah.
What is the reticular activating system, or RAS, and how can I trick it into helping me?
The reticular activating system, or RAS, is a bundle of nerves in your brainstem that acts as a gatekeeper. It decides what sensory information is important enough to pass into your conscious awareness.
Right, the red car analogy. You buy a red car, and suddenly you see red cars everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
How do I apply that to my vocabulary?
By directing your focus. If you actively train your RAS by telling yourself, I am terrible at pronunciation, I always sound stupid, Your RAS will filter for every single time you mess up, confirming that negative belief.
Oh,
But if you practice affirmations and visualization, telling yourself, I'm noticing progress every day, your brain starts filtering the world for signs of success, that new word you use, the joke you finally understood. You are actively shifting your brain's attention filter to seek positive linguistic input.
that's incredibly powerful. But beyond the mental filter, you mentioned structural benefits. What are the actual cognitive benefits of becoming bilingual?
The benefits are profound. Learning a second language, even later in life, is a high-intensity workout for the prefrontal cortex, which handles complex planning and decision-making. MRI studies consistently show that bilingual individuals have denser gray matter in brain areas responsible for these executive functions.
Okay, unpack that for me. Gray matter density. Why is it getting denser, and what does that dense matter do?
Well, the gray matter is where your neurons and their connections are. Denser gray matter suggests more robust connections and circuitry. And the reason it becomes denser in bilinguals is because they are constantly performing two demanding tasks at once: selecting the right second language, the L2, and actively suppressing their native language, the L1.
So my brain is essentially running two processes at once, speaking English,
Yeah.
while simultaneously putting my native language in a little box.
Exactly. And that sustained suppression acts as intense cognitive exercise. This results in measurable improvements in your executive functions. Things like enhanced task switching, better attentional filtering or ignoring distractions, and superior conflict resolution, so making better decisions under pressure.
Wait, so the cognitive benefit isn't just linguistic, it actually helps me be better at my job, switching between emails and meetings, even when I'm speaking my native language.
That's the cross-domain benefit. The functional reorganization in the brain, driven by neuroplasticity, provides these cognitive advantages across all tasks, not just language.
That leads perfectly into the final section here, the deep link between language and perspective. Does learning English specifically actually change how I think?
It absolutely does, because language isn't just a tool for description, it shapes perception. The structure of English, for instance, tends to emphasize clarity, action, and specificity. It has that linear subject-verb-object pattern that reinforces a solution-focused, forward-moving thought process.
So are you saying that by using English, I'm adopting a more linear way of structuring my reality?
In subtle ways, yes. Think about hypothetical situations. Studies show that when bilingual individuals are asked to make complex moral or financial decisions in their L2, they rely less on emotional biases associated with their L1.
So the L2 can make my decisions more rational.
Yes. When you process a situation in English, you're accessing a less emotionally charged linguistic system. This allows you to evaluate choices from a more logical perspective. It's maybe the ultimate cognitive upgrade, the ability to step back and analyze your own thoughts through a secondary linguistic framework.
Okay, we've established the mindset. My brain is sculptable, and consistency via microbursts is key. Now, let's get down to the brass tacks of action.
Right. Remember, the overall goal is automatization. Shifting knowledge from conscious, slow translation, that's declarative knowledge, to automatic, spontaneous execution, which is procedural knowledge.
So how do we force that shift from slow memory to automatic execution?
It starts with how you learn words. We have to break the habit of using simple one-to-one translations. Relying on hand-shoe-glove means you are still accessing your L1 network first, then translating to L2. That hesitation is the plateau's greatest symptom.
So instead of translation, I should be building direct links to my English brain.
Exactly. You have to associate the English word directly with the physical action, context, or image. So you'd say, I am putting my gloves on, and visualize the cold hands and the action. This bypasses your L1 completely, building robust semantic networks within the L2 system that is essential for rapid retrieval.
That makes perfect sense. Now let's structure our time. You mentioned the high-efficacy 90-minute study cycle. Since we're using microbursts, how does this routine get divided up across several days?
The 90-minute cycle is based on natural, human, ultradian rhythms, which govern our focus. 90 minutes is roughly one complete cycle where we can maintain peak focus before needing a break. We use this structure for deep processing of one specific piece of content, like a single podcast deep dive with its transcript.
Okay, so what are the stages?
We break it into 4 crucial stages. First, passive and active listening. That's about 30 minutes total. Listen once without the transcript, just for general understanding. The second listen is active.
Yeah.
You're focusing on flow, rhythm, anything you recognize but wouldn't use yourself.
And second,
Second is shadowing, but for a maximum of 10 minutes. It's intense, simultaneous repetition. We place this right after listening while the auditory memory is fresh.
Wait, if I'm only studying in 15-minute bursts, why is shadowing only 10 minutes? That seems too short.
Because shadowing is neurologically intensive. 10 minutes of focused, high-intensity mimicking is enough to get the neurological benefit without causing burnout that would destroy the quality of the next steps. Remember, microbursts rely on intensity in short windows.
Okay, got it. What's third?
Third is mining the transcript. This is about 20 minutes. This is where you do a deep analysis of the text. You are hunting for high-value second category vocabulary.
Ah, that second category vocabulary. We need to elaborate on that. That's the gold mine for B2C1 learners, isn't it?
It truly is. Most learners focus on Category 3, which are words they don't know at all, or Category 1, words they know and use. But Category 2 is the key to the plateau. These are words you understand perfectly when you hear them, but you would never be able to use them spontaneously yourself.
Like advanced phrasal verbs or specific adjectives?
Exactly. The linguistic scaffolding for C1 expression, you mine the transcript specifically for these. And the fourth stage is summarizing and retrieval practice, about 10 minutes. You synthesize the entire content, either written or spoken. This is active retrieval, forcing you to use the new vocabulary you just mined.
That whole cycle, listening, shadowing, mining, summarizing, is a highly structured blueprint.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk more about shadowing. Why is it so powerful, and how does it specifically help with that hesitation?
Shadowing is so impactful because it completely bypasses conscious analytical thought. It's used to train conference interpreters for a reason. You are not processing meaning. You are simply synchronizing sound input with vocal output.
So I'm not translating. I'm training my mouth to move in the English way.
Exactly. From a neuroscientific standpoint, shadowing actively forces your auditory cortex, the hearing plane of the brain, to synchronize with your motor cortex, which controls speech. This builds a direct muscle memory pathway for the rhythm, stress, and intonation of English.
Like a musician practicing scales.
It's the same principle. You're building muscle memory for English speech patterns. This accelerates automatization and dramatically reduces that crippling hesitation.
That explains why I feel like my mouth is physically slow when I try to speak fast. It's a motor skill deficit that needs repetition.
Precisely. And once you've trained your muscles through shadowing and mining, you need to practice output under pressure.
So conversation practice. But what's the difference between just chatting and actual fluency practice?
Fluency, remember, is a retrieval problem. The knowledge is there, but you can't get it out fast enough. Effective output practice, whether it's a focused conversation or just self-talk, must train rapid, automatic retrieval under time constraint. The inner L2 monologue self-talk is essential because it makes English your default mode of internal thought.
That brings us to the resource question. I've noticed some services, like the English Leap podcast, often give out free PDF transcripts, which is great. But others, like Easy English Talk, gate their transcripts behind a membership fee. Is the transcript truly non-negotiable for breaking the plateau?
That's an excellent question. For the intermediate learner aiming for C1, yes, the transcript is non-negotiable. To achieve C1 level detail, you cannot rely solely on sound.
Why not? My listening comprehension is good.
Because the transcript is what converts temporary auditory input into structured, reusable data. It enables those C1 skills: deep analysis, vocabulary mining, and systematic error correction. You can't do rigorous shadowing or write an accurate summary if you're guessing at 10% of the words.
And the cost.
Well, if a service provides a free PDF, that's great for mining and summarizing. But if a platform offers interactive transcripts linked to conversation practice, that integration can justify the cost. The key takeaway is, whether free or paid, the transcript is the structural foundation you need to push past the plateau.
So the transcript isn't a crutch. It's the tool required for surgical C1 level vocabulary acquisition. That action plan gives us a clear path. But I think we need to address the two biggest psychological hurdles that stop people. First, can I say, I am waiting to feel motivated before I start my English practice, because action should only follow inspiration. I hear this all the time.
That is a classic mistake, the motivation trap, and it cripples thousands of learners. It's based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how your brain works.
Okay, correct me gently.
The most successful learners align their approach with what science tells us. Action comes first, motivation follows. You shouldn't wait to feel ready or inspired. That moment is too unreliable. Your brain needs the signal from consistent action. By completing a small, achievable task, a 15-minute microburst, your brain registers a small victory and releases dopamine. You have to act your way into motivation.
So the feeling of being motivated is the reward for taking action, not the prerequisite for it. That flips the whole dynamic.
It puts the control back in your hands. Now, let me offer another major mistake. The belief that all stress is bad for learning.
That's a common belief. Isn't stress damaging? I feel so anxious when I have to speak English unexpectedly.
Unmanaged, chronic stress is toxic. It releases cortisol, destroys memory, and inhibits neuroplasticity. But short-term, controlled, high-intensity challenge is a key tool for growth. Controlled stressors like 10 minutes of intense shadowing tell your brain, this activity is critically important. You must adapt and strengthen these networks.
So controlled stress is the neurological signal for rewire faster. It forces the change.
Exactly. These challenges are necessary exposure therapy for your nervous system. They help your brain build resilience. The critical distinction is that this stress must be temporary and paired with recovery, which is why the microburst model works so well.
Okay, we've covered a huge amount of ground today.
We have, and now it's time for the pop quiz to lock in those key takeaways. See if your RAS was filtering for the right information.
I'm ready. Let's test this newly sculpted gray matter.
Test 1. What type of persistent mistake is resistant to correction because the wrong pattern has been cemented into your procedural memory?
That's the error that fires automatically when I'm under pressure, even though I know the rule. That's a fossilized mistake.
Precisely. Test 2. Which intense, short technique bypasses conscious thought and trains muscle memory for natural rhythm and intonation?
The technique used by conference interpreters to reduce hesitation. That is shadowing.
Spot on. And test 3. What is the scientific term for the brain's ability to constantly change and reorganize its connections, proving that your potential is sculptable, not fixed?
That's the most empowering word we learned today. Neuroplasticity.
Perfect score. You definitely passed the filter test. To summarize, remember these 3 core concepts. First, neuroplasticity, you are sculptable. Second, consistency, use microbursts. Systems beat goals. And third, mindset, focus on progress, not perfection.
That's such a powerful summary. So for you, the listener, we're going to give you one tiny tangible task right now to start building those new systems. We call this the micro challenge.
Your challenge is this. For 1 minute today, use the technique of inner L2 monologue self-talk in English.
Don't worry about perfect grammar or complex words. Just narrate what you are currently doing in your head in English.
And here's the actionable guidance. The goal is speed, not accuracy. If you hit a word you don't know, say, for a kitchen utensil, do not stop. Use a placeholder like that thing, or the red object, and keep going. This helps you bypass your L1 and start creating those new English thought habits immediately.
Start small, start right now, and keep going. That 1 minute can change your entire approach. We believe in you. And don't forget to like and subscribe to Mastering English Podcast. I'm Alex. See you next time.
And I'm Sam. Bye.